Welcome to What's the TVV? I'm your host, Sue Jones. It's been just over a month since we opened our Animal Care and Adoption Center, the first ever animal shelter our city has ever run. We wanted to take this episode to really dive into what it took to open up the facility and what services are being offered there. So we invited Duran, our code enforcement official, to come in and talk with us. We're so excited to have you today because we want to learn a little bit more about animal services. And with the new Animal Care and Adoption Center coming online, can you tell us a little bit about what led us to build that facility?
May 2023, our longtime provider gave us a very short notice that they needed a close shop. And so we began to do a lot of things concurrently. Find a spot so we can set up a temporary shelter. We visited a few local shelters so we can see what the basics were, what is the absolute necessities. The site came about through a joint effort with the Victor Valley Union High School District. It was now the Goodwill School, which was vacant for quite some time, but well maintained. You know, it was nice and green. The structures were still intact, but clearly it's been unoccupied for a while.
I have visited the campus and it looks amazing. You guys did a great job, and you did all of that work in just about a year's time, right?
We did. A major shout out to our public works teams, our facilities teams. It was truly an all hands on deck approach. Everybody was collectively interested in this project, willing to support, willing to share ideas. This even includes our IT folks, our HR folks, our risk management folks who helped us with navigating to some of the contracts and some of the uncommon challenges that a city found in converting a school site to a shelter.
What is the capacity of the shelter?
Currently we have over 35 kennels. We're moving towards 135 or 38 kennels and about a capacity of about 20 feline kennels. And we certainly have plans for expansion as well.
When you talk about expansion, can you talk a little bit about what's coming for the shelter?
Currently, the site has got 2 enrichment areas, one that's already gated and has some grass on there, and it's primarily intended to allow our staff to exercise the animals first, and those that are looking to adopt the animal to really engage with the animal there. There's another site that now has a nice mural. And it's eventually going to be landscape. That's really our next step. The other expansion that we hopefully plan to do is build 2 larger metal buildings to expand our volume and our capacity for kennels. Looking anywhere between 100 to 106 kennels per building, and that'll go on our east side of our campus.
When we think about our shelter and we compare it to a rescue, you all are up against a lot more challenges with respect to accepting dogs, and you can never turn a dog away kind of scenario. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Unlike private rescues, government shelters really have little choice but to respond to the request from the public. Whether it's, the public reporting a house full of pets, more than 3, perhaps sometimes 10 or 20 or more, or law enforcement, fire asking for help to come rescue and get a particular animal they need contained. We don't have the ability to just turn away animals. We have a necessity to process all animals.
I know that we get some questions from our community who are very concerned about euthanasia rates, and there's been questions that we've received, is this going to be a kill shelter? Would you address some of that for us?
With respect to euthanasia, we don't euthanize animals for space. We have plenty of bandwidth at our shelter, and we expect to have more bandwidth at our shelter to manage that. But on occasion, unfortunately, some of the animals do need to be euthanized because they're critically injured, they're suffering. And it's the officer's responsibility to, if needed, that the officer needs to euthanize the animal in order to remedy and address the animal suffering. This could be examples where an animal was run over, an animal was critically bitten, mauled, perhaps is gravely ill. It's an unfortunate decision and a hard decision that the officers do not take lightly. It impacts the officers, of course. It impacts all of our staff. But it impacts us further to see the animal suffer, especially if it's critically injured in a critical state.
Your team has done an amazing job of going out into the community to try to adopt the animals. Can you share with us some of the success that you've had?
Sure. My team, again, it's all them, and their efforts are seen. If you commonly go to Costco, if you commonly go to Home Depot, you'll find some events there. You'll find the team there. And that's just a demonstration of how committed we are to rehoming our pets. It's very simple. I think we go where the folks are at. The staff enjoys it. I think the public enjoys it. We enjoy, even if folks come out and pet the dogs and they don't take a dog, it's fine. It really does make a big difference for the dog. And, some dogs don't get adopted that day, but you can tell that their demeanor when they come back to the shelter to try it again, they're in a much better place. They were exposed, they had somebody to pet them, so it's good.
Since taking on this responsibility just over a year ago, how many animals has your team been able to rehome?
Over 1,500 in various forms. Return to owner, fostered, rescued, primarily adopted. Incredible.
Well, you guys really have taken on a big operation. Do you have plans to add to your staff?
Currently, we brought on 6 part-time maintenance aides with their primary task is taking care of the animals, clean the kennels, clean the site. We brought in our registered vet tech as well, in charge of administering meds, caring for the animals, assessing the animals, determining if they have to go to the vet. But I think as the operation expands and we start getting into a cadence, a good pace of identifying what our rhythm is, certainly we'll see if there's additional staff.
Can you tell us how else you plan to use the Animal Care and Adoption Center?
As a matter of fact, currently we offer free vaccination, free chipping, free licensing through June. The site it's a large facility, plenty of room for events. I think we could see perhaps teaming up with some nonprofits and perhaps teaming up with some government agencies as well to provide some services, spay-neuter, mobile spay-neuter clinics, perhaps. Yeah, we have plenty of space to offer some different events and different services.
George, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your insight and give us a broader picture of the Animal Care and Adoption Center and your team's great efforts to provide animal services to our community.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
Now we're going to talk to 2 members of our animal services team to get more insight into what it's actually like to work in animal services. We're going to begin with one of our supervisors, Marissa Fratt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Sue. Thank you for having me.
I see you brought a wonderful little puppy.
This is Kiwi. She is 3 weeks old. She's currently being fostered, and we actually got her from an animal hoard. We pulled 52 animals from a house, unfortunately, and she just happened to be one of them. She is Chihuahua, possibly mixed with Terrier.
And I know she's being fostered, but is she also available for adoption?
She will be once she's old enough. So right now at 3 weeks, she'll be available for adoption at 8.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your position and what you do?
So we do run calls throughout the community. We pick up stray animals. We also have an animal shelter here in Victorville where we have animals available for adoption.
Now, what are some of the things you do to help the animals in your care get adopted?
We work with them. We really like to provide enrichment for them, and we identify what their strong points are. Right now, we have some that we're working with just a little more obedience, but also socialization. One of the greatest things is that we have a dog play yard. And seeing an animal who maybe didn't come from the best situation and they get to go into the play yard for the first time, and at first they're a little, uneasy, and then they get to go and they finally realize, I can go up this ramp, I can go down these stairs, I can go through this tunnel, and they're running around and just having the best time, and it just really warms your heart, almost makes you a little teary just to see an animal that maybe didn't have a good life so far to experience something new for the first time.
You also have these great adoption events. Will you tell me a little bit about those?
We bring the animals to the people because not many people wake up in the morning and go, hey, you know what, I'm going to go to the shelter and adopt a dog. But they might wake up and say, hey, I'm going to go to Costco today. And it's been very well received by the community. We've had an abundance of animals adopted through these programs at Costco, at the farmer's market, We've been to Home Depot. And so we do a lot of outreach out in the community in order to get our animals introduced to people that may not think to come to the animal shelter.
To help the members of the community learn more about how you all function, can you tell us a little bit about like what a typical day is for you?
Well, a typical day in animal services is never a typical day. So the officers will receive calls and they'll go out in the field, and those calls can be anything from animal welfare checks to stray animals to barking complaints or checking to see if animals were in fact abandoned. You could be having a more of a calm day, and then boom, you're out chasing an emu through the riverbed.
What is your advice when a community member sees a stray dog?
One of the things that we found regarding stray dogs is that about 42% of the dogs that we do encounter just doing a drive-by are actually in front of their own home. And the other remaining amount, usually about 82%, is about 400 yards or within 400 yards from their home. So they're usually within the neighborhood where they live. It's easier when we're able to relocate that animal back to their home in the field as opposed to bringing it into the shelter. And so the way the community can help is if they see a stray dog, check to see if there's anybody out in the neighborhood that may recognize that animal. See if they can get that animal back home. Because oftentimes what we're seeing is folks will try and rescue the dog from the street. They'll put it into their car, and then they realize, oh no, what now what? Sometimes the shelter's not open. Sometimes the shelter is so amazingly full, which all of the shelters up here are enduring right now. If they're able to get the animal back home right then and there, that's the best thing for the animal, because oftentimes coming into the shelter can be a very stressful situation for the dogs.
What is the sheltering operation like on a day-to-day basis?
So just like our field operations, there is no typical day-to-day at the shelter. Everything can change in a moment, but it's very rewarding to work in a shelter environment, especially seeing the animals get adopted and people reunited with their pets.
What is one of the most memorable adoption stories that you have?
Working with these animals, you get very connected to them. There are just some animals that have your heart, and getting them adopted is so important. But we've had some animals that have come from very unfortunate situations. They haven't had the best life, and getting them adopted to somebody who is so excited and so ready to change this pet's life for the better and finding their best friend is so important. It's just heartwarming, and it means a lot to us.
For a long time, we contracted out the sheltering services, and now we brought all of that into our animal services team, and y'all had to take on a lot more responsibilities. Can you describe how you made it through that transition or what it felt like to you?
It was a little nerve-wracking at first, and because it's just a big challenge. And myself and Rose and several of the other animal control officers had worked for years just on the animal control area of our services. When we no longer were just animal control, you're having to learn a lot of different things that you didn't know occurred in a shelter. We now had to learn the whole sheltering aspect, and it's a whole different ballgame. We relied heavily on a lot of outside agencies to teach us, and we're still learning. We're still learning new methods that other shelters are doing. I don't think we would be where we are today without the immense team that has put so much heart and effort into building the shelter. Our commitment is to the animals, to the community, and it's been a team effort to get this far.
We have so many animal lovers in our community. What would you recommend they do, or how might they help y'all?
Well, we are gearing up to start a volunteer program, and we are just anxiously waiting because we have so many volunteers knocking at the door ready to get started. And so we are so excited for that to come on board. We are always in need of blankets, towels, and potty pads, of course. Anyone in the community can apply to be a foster and just take an animal for a short period of time. It also gives them socialization and helps them become more adoptable. And I know the animals love being fostered. Let's say if somebody doesn't have the ability to bring in a pet at this time, they can always choose to virtually foster. They can tell their friends about an animal they saw available for adoption. They can take an animal off of our website, post it to their social media, and share that this animal is available. And so that way, if they're not able to necessarily take an animal into their home, they can help spread the word that we have great animals available.
Where on our website might they find the pictures and learn about our available pets?
So if you go to the Victorville City website and you click the paw print, there's a link right in there for lost and available pets.
What would you say your favorite part of the job is?
My favorite part of the job is going to be definitely the connections that we make with the animals, but also helping out in the community. When there's an opportunity to expand a community service that we can do for the people and the animals, I'm all on board to find that. Right now, we're currently looking at a way to work with another local organization to create a pet food pantry. So it's something that the community needs. And also, when we're helping out the community with these small little needs, such as pet food, we're able to keep more animals in their homes. Because oftentimes, pet food can get rather expensive. And if we're able to provide some sort of relief there, we're happy to. Because even in the most trying of times, our animals will hang in there with us. They're, just the big heart, and they just love us. I mean, even the folks who say that they don't have time for the animal, I guarantee the animal would much rather be home with you and enjoying the time that you do have for them rather than coming to the animal shelter. Even though we really do try to make the most comfort, welcoming, happy place for them and make the wait worthwhile, they would still much rather be home with their person.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight, Marissa. It's wonderful to get another inside view as to what your job's like and to learn more about how you're helping the community from our animal services team.
Thank you, Sue. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
And with a decade of experience, I know she's going to have a lot of great insight. I'm pleased to welcome Animal Control Officer Zyra Smith. Welcome, Zyra. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about your position with Animal Services?
I'm an animal control officer. I've been there going on 10 years this May. Every day is different. We do go out to neighbor complaints, deceased animals, dog bites, dog abandonments, animal cruelty cases, and even hoarding cases.
What would you say your favorite part of the job is?
My favorite part is the excitement. Every day there's something new, exciting, and I love that I'm able to help the animals.
Speaking of animals, why don't you tell us about your guest you brought with us?
So I have Rico. His name's Rico Suave. Come on, Rico. He is a foster dog, and I'm more than likely going to adopt him. He was from a hoarding case as well. He's just my special little guy.
So what kind of dog is Rico?
We're thinking Chihuahua.
Folks on the Animal Services team, do you guys find yourselves getting attached to the dogs?
We get super attached. I have had probably over 10 fosters myself. So we find ourselves fostering them and then getting them their forever home.
And members of the community can foster as well, right?
Yes, they can. And we always look for fosters. It's very good for the dogs, gets them out of the kennel, and it would be very helpful.
And it improves their chances of getting adopted?
Yes, it makes them more social and just used to people. A lot of the dogs we pick up, they're just thrown out in the street or desert dogs. So human touch or human interaction is just a lot for them, and they're not used to it. So when you take a dog to foster, they learn to love it. Just like him, he was not used to touch, and now he is in my shirt 24/7.
Now, what are some of the things y'all do to help them get the animals in our care adopted?
We do have a lot of events. Every other Thursday, we are at the farmers market. At least 2 to 3 times a month, we do have adoptions event, either at Costco or at our new facility on East Street, the Pet of the Week, which has been helping a lot.
And if members of the community want to meet some of the pets we have available, what would you recommend they do?
Come down to our office. We have 40 dogs at our new facility that they're able to meet, but if there's one on the website that they would like to meet, we can always bring it to the facility for them to meet.
And when you try to pair somebody with a dog, what are some of the things that they might consider?
Usually when I try to pair them, I kind of ask their lifestyle, what they're looking for, if they have kids, cats. A lot of times people will tell you what they want. If they want a calmer dog, I'm like, oh, I have the dog for you. If they want a hyper dog to go jogging, I have the dog for you.
It's great that you can get to know the dogs in such a way that you can advise people that a dog that might be a better match for them.
Yeah, and I like it. It's fun. It's like a dog matchmaker. Like, I always match them. So I'm like, I like it.
And Rico Suave is such a fun name.
Yes.
How do you go about naming the dogs?
Their personality. When I got him, I seen him like, wearing like a chain. And so I was like, oh, he's like a Rico Suave.
Oh, I love that.
And then even the other dogs we have, we'll look at them or their personalities and we're like, you look like a Hank or you look like a Bob. So we just kind of go off their personalities. Sometimes we do run out of names or we've used the same names. So we go based off the street or like, anything that stands out if they were picked up, in the desert, or we kind of associate it with that.
Now, when y'all take a dog in, does it become adoptable right away?
No. So there is a 4-day stray hold. The 4 days we kind of evaluate the dog to see if it's adoptable, if it's aggressive, if it has any medical issues. After the 4 days, the dog is able to go up for surgery. Once the dog's okay from surgery, then it goes up to adoption. So the time frame is different for every dog. Usually within a week, the dog should be ready to go. So if I pick up a dog and the 4 days is up and say you've seen it on the 5th day, the next Wednesday I'll get it in for surgery and you can take it home.
Now, when you say surgery, do you mean spay neuter?
Yes. Every Wednesday we do about 20 dogs for spays and neuters.
Wow. That's a great way to get a dog that's already spayed neutered, and because it's free, right?
Yep.
It's a free adoption.
Yes, it's free. They come spayed, neutered, microchipped, vaccinated, and sometimes groomed. We do get dogs that are super matted, so we'll get them nicely groomed for you.
What's the benefit of the microchip?
A lot of times people think it's a tracker, and it's not a tracker. If your dog were to get out, we can scan the dog and reunite you and your dog. We've had cases where a dog's been hit by a car, and we have to decide what we're going to do, so we'll contact the owner on the chip, and then they could reunite. But a lot of times when a dog doesn't have a chip, there's nobody to connect the dog to, so it is harder to make decisions. But if a dog is owned, it's easier to get the dog home and treat it if needed.
And likewise, what would you say the importance of spay neuter is?
Overpopulation. There's a lot of accidental litters, and we have enough dogs in Victorville needing homes. And it's beneficial for the dogs too. It does help female dogs so they don't get an infection.
What made you get into animal services?
Ever since I was little, I wanted to work with animals. I actually started working at 15 as a volunteer at vet clinics. And I see myself working with animals like forever. And then once I retire, I want to have like a rescue of like 100 chihuahuas.
So thinking back over your career, what's your most memorable call?
So I can go against a pit, snakes, everything, but I'm super scared of birds, chickens, and roosters. And we had a house that had about 15, and my supervisor thought it would be a good learning experience for me to go in there with them. So I went in and they started flying everywhere and I freaked out.
How interesting. But you're willing to go and collect a snake?
Yeah, I could do snakes, I could do possums, raccoons, goats, everything. But I'm super scared of birds.
Now, speaking about your desire to maybe one day start your own rescue,
Yes.
I know that you're the rescue expert, or
Yes.
you're the one that does a lot of work with rescues on our
Yes,
team. Would
I
you
do.
describe a little bit about your efforts?
It's just basically getting our name out there to the rescues to understand our situation, because a lot of people don't know that Victorville has a shelter.
So it's really through the relationships that
Yes.
you're building. Would you say that that's the most rewarding part of your job, or what is the most rewarding?
I would say when we get dogs homes, just to see the dogs go and just know that they're going to have a really good life.
What's the farthest place one of the rescues went?
Alaska.
Wow.
We had a dog go to Alaska, and it was a husky, which is perfect because it's too hot out here for the huskies.
So for a long time, we contracted the shelter service. What was it like for you to transition to also having the responsibility of the sheltering service in addition to the field?
So it was an adjustment. A lot of us did have to take on extra tasks, but we all came in on off days, nights. Everybody in animal control, their main goal is to get the dogs out and adopted. We all love animals, and that's our main goal. So we will literally do anything we have to do, any adjustments, any changes to get the dogs homes. We used to just pick up the dogs and transport them to VVAPL. So now we are picking up the dogs, intaking the dogs, vaccinating the dogs, doing our temperament testing on the dogs, scheduling our surgeries for the dogs, and then putting them up for adoption. So everything now is through us.
When you say temperament testing, can you give me some examples of that?
A lot of times we pick up dogs and they are very scared. So we give them time to decompress in the kennel, let them calm down. And then the next couple of days we'll slowly go in. If a dog's very scared, we like to give them treats slowly every day just to build their trust. And then, once they're taking the treats and we see more progress, then we start going in the kennel, putting a leash on the dog, trying to pick up the dog, touch its paws. The temperament testing is basically to see if somebody were adopted, say they have kids. We like to just pull on their ear a little because that's what kids love to do, just to see if the dog reacts. We'd rather the dog react with us than us adopt the dog out and then something were to happen. So the dogs do go through some testing to see just things kids would do. Touch their paw. Oh, we know this dog doesn't like it. Or we do dog testing to see if the dog gets along with other dogs. Does it get along with big dogs, little dogs, cats? We test them with a lot of things.
I see how that could be really beneficial when, you're coming in to try to adopt a dog.
Yes.
How can members of our community help?
Foster a dog, just basically get the dog out, get it used to going to the parks, get it used to leashes, stuff like that. We do also take donations, blankets, bowls, treats, anything to really keep the dogs comfortable while they're in our care.
That's great. I know we have a very giving community.
Yes.
And there's a lot of folks that want to help. So
Yes.
Zyra, thank you so much for sharing all the insight into what it's like to be an animal control officer. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. What's the TVV is produced by the City of Victorville. If you have a topic you would like to see on future episodes, leave a comment or review on your preferred platform.